Hi. Whew. Always the first couple of minutes, the most difficult ones. Need to relax. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions just to get into it. So who here know what observability is? Raise your hand, please. OK, fair amount. Who has observability at their day job, or considers they have observability in a way or the other? OK, good. So some people know what I'm talking about. So conventional wisdom says if you want to have observability, you need to have the 3 pillars, metrics, logs, and tracing, right? Well, no. And that's what I'm here to talk about. Those are tools. We can even say that they are one piece of the puzzle of observability. But this is not observability, because observability is about people and practices rather than about tools. And I've gotten ahead of myself, so let's do it correctly now. I've calmed down a bit. OK, so my name is Ramez Hanna. I work for Criteo, managing the observability team. Hence why I'm talking about observability. At Criteo, we're in ad tech, so we put ads on websites. The good ads that interest you are us. Anything else is probably Google. At Criteo, we deal with millions of QPSs. We have 50,000 servers across 10 data centers spread all over the world. 600 engineers, of which 6 are responsible for observability, and that's my team. The first question I would like to answer, before even you ask it, why should you listen to me? Why you shouldn't be listening to me? Just hear what I say. I hope it gets you curious about observability and gives you some ideas. Don't take this as something that I tell you, this is how it's to be done. And for that, I have a small disclaimer. So what I'm going to be saying today is not my own wisdom. It's things that I've learned from, first of all, people I've worked with, people I've watched on videos and read articles from. It's from books I've read, and from some experience that I have doing observability at Criteo for the past 4 years. And this is my view on the subject. Feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to challenge what I'm going to say, so we can all benefit from that. And if I say this today, maybe tomorrow I have a different, well, not really tomorrow, but like in a period of time, I'll have a different opinion because our understanding of things evolve. I started off saying, yes, observability is the 3 pillars. We should put the pillars. But then I learned that, or at least I discovered that it's not how it should be. So back to what observability is. Actually, let's get into the topic now. So according to Wikipedia, observability is a measure of how well internal states of a system can be inferred from knowledge of its external outputs. Might seem clear, but yet in the same time so mysterious. First time I read it, I couldn't really make sense out of it, although it looks like, wow, sophisticated must be true, right? So I did some reflection over the time and experience trying to do these things, and I came up with this maybe adjusted to my context. So I say that observability is the act of exposing state and being able to answer 3 questions. What is the status of my system? Up, down. And if there's something wrong, what is not working, and why it's not working. So basically be able to look at some tool, or say dashboards or whatever it is, but some tool that will help you narrow down what is not working and why it's not working, so we can actually get into action fast and fix things, right? So let's look at this in a bit more detail. The first part about exposing state. This is about people willingly taking the action, conscious action, of instrumenting their code to expose something, expose data, state, code, whatever, that will let them be able to inspect what's happening. And the second part is about answering those 3 questions, so understanding what's happening. So the idea is not to expose the things that you know about. So that if you know that if there's a DNS issue internally, then well, everything is a DNS problem always. But if there's a DNS issue, I want to check if DNS is resolving well, so I can, if it fails, I know it failed, I can fix it. That's what we call known unknowns. So we know about these issues that can happen. But observability should help you figure out or discover new modes of failure, things that you couldn't think of, that you couldn't imagine, but they happen in prod, because in prod everything happens, right? So observability should allow you to discover new failure modes, which are the unknown unknowns that you haven't thought about before. So how are we going to achieve observability? Well, I will tell you how you will not achieve it. You will not achieve it by only choosing the right tools or choosing tools. I like to have this, show this. It's like the 3 pillars that hold observability on top. That's not what's going to get you to do observability. Because observability, as I said, is about people and practices. Put any tool, the perfect tool for observability that will help you to get there, right? Put it anywhere. Let users use it. They will come up with ways of using it that were never conceived. People are quite creative in the ways they can use tools to do things, twisted things that were never meant. Why? Because when I have an idea and I see a tool, I will make the tool work for how I think about things. I will not change my idea just because of a tool, right? When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So it's the same thing. That's why I'm saying that observability is more about people and practices. Once you have the right mindset, once you have the right practices, people think about the right practices, tools will just make this work. So what does the team, the observability team does at Criteo? We set out with a mission to help Criteo be successful. And generally, this is the mission of any team at any company. You're there to participate in the success of your company. No success, no money, no job. So you're there to contribute to success, not to create tools, not to run certain infrastructures. So our why is to help Criteo be successful, but our specific why is that we're ensuring teams are good at observing their systems. That's our mission. How we want to do that? We want to do that in an intuitive, observability should be intuitive and effortless. The what is everything else you'd like. So we'll do workshops, we'll write documentation, we'll create tools, we'll buy some tools, we're gonna do everything technical to get there. But the most important thing is our why, because this is what guides us to know why we are there, what we are doing. I always like to put anything I do in those 3 circles. I'm sure you've seen those before in many different presentations, but this is really the core of anything we do. This is you can also put observability and say why we have observability, how we want observability done, or you can talk about DevOps, you can talk about anything, right? So at Criteo, it happens that we run our own tools. But our mission is not to run infrastructures. Our mission is to work with people to get them to observe the systems better. So what we will do is that we will do workshops. We will go and sit with teams and observe how they use our tools and show them how to best use it. We will do presentations company-wide. We will write some tools for that. So our mission is not running infrastructures. It's all about people. And if at some point I actually looked at, okay, we have this infrastructure based on Graphite and Prometheus, Grafana, and lots of bricks. But what if I take all of this away and get a service from a SaaS? What happens then? Does that mean that I'm out of job? Should find another thing to do? We worked on that as a team with management. Well, the final decision was, no, we'll stick with what we're doing for different reasons, some of them political, some of them money-wise, costs. But at the end, if we remove the tools, everybody understands and believes, yes, that we are still important because what we do is not infrastructures, but it's getting people to do the right thing around observability, of course. Do you need observability team like we have at Criteo? We have the luxury. We have 600 engineers in the R&D, on the technical team. So yes, we have the luxury to have 6 of those doing observability. But do every company have that luxury? No. That's for sure. So what should other companies do? Should we rely on people's best efforts? Maybe. What I've seen in some other companies is that they usually would have the platform team, or DevOps team, although I hate that word, or some sort of team that is responsible for everything below the code, so that's why I call it platform, and also they would be the ones doing what observability team would do. So they would make sure that people understand, they would just find the right tools, maybe get a SaaS, or even deploy their own thing, show people how to do it, from time to time follow up on that. The problem with that approach is these people, this team, is usually busy with other things, right? So they will get busy with the day-to-day, forget about observability, come back to that later, and don't put enough effort into it all the time. And over time, they never reach what they have wanted to do with observability from the beginning. Actually, my team also might suffer from that from time to time. Since we do our tools, our day-to-day is very difficult. Our day-to-day, we have systems to run, we have on-call, we have business, we have downtime, we have to make sure that things work on new features. So how do we solve this issue? I really enjoyed the talk yesterday about the championing. And what I started putting here as owners, you can just remove owners and put champions. I just didn't change my presentation. But the idea of champions is what I was actually trying to convey here. Whether you have a team dedicated, whether you have a team doing that as part-time, the best thing to do is to get an observability group of champions. They would work parallel to everything else. These people are the people that care about the subject. That's the whole point of anything. If you care about something enough, you'll be doing better than people who don't care about it, right? And since observability is all about people and practices, the work has to be done by people, for people. Okay. When I say observability is about people and practices, I really stress on the people side. Champions or owners or a team dedicated, they have to focus on people. If you forget people, you forget what you're doing. One of the things we've done in my team is that we send one of ours to sit for 3 to 4 days with one of the teams. We have many. So we pick teams kind of at random or based on their needs, and we send someone who would sit with them, observe how they work on a day-to-day, look at their dashboards, look at their alerts, look at their SLIs and SLOs, challenge what they are doing. Is it the right way? Is it the best practice? Do you really need this alert? Isn't this alert a bit too sensitive? We know better how to make these things because this is our main focus. This is what we do every day, and this is why we are there. So this is what we spend our time on. While everybody else, they do it as kind of something extra they have to do. Some of them understand the importance of it. Some of them don't understand the importance of it. And even those who understand and really want to do it, they get busy, right? Every day in, day out, we have to write code. We have to do things. We have to deploy these services. And we get into the details, and we forget to see the big picture. And once we forget to see the big picture, the next step you do might not lead you to where you wanted. If I actually go back to the 3 circles with a why, how, and what, you know what you are there to do. So this is, where are you? Basically, it's like answering the philosophical question where I'm coming from. Or why am I here? So where do I want to go is a vision. So you want to achieve observability, and you have to describe that somehow so that every time you know, I'm coming from there, and I'm going there. Get busy. So you look under your feet, you get busy. Then you look up, okay, I need to get there, so what's the next step? I go there. If you don't know where you're going, if you're busy, okay, where do I go? Let's go here. Next time you say, I'll just maybe go there. So we always effort every direction, but not necessarily getting you to a certain endpoint. So every team or every group of people, those observability champions, could be because they are somehow a team doing things right, they need to know where they are going. They need to have a vision of things. This vision can be very, very far that they will never reach it, but it keeps them on a straight line at least, or on a trajectory that will get them somewhere. I've talked about what observability is from my point of view, like a very, very high-level description, and I told you how we're doing it at Criteo. Let's see what anybody else can do, or at least the three guiding things I consider, which will help you have successful observability. And those things will not necessarily be observability specific. I will not talk about observability best practices. There's tons of information like that everywhere. What I'm talking about is really how to set a mindset for that. And that will apply to anything, really. You can put any word instead of observability, and that will apply to it, because this is all about people and practices. DevOps is about people and practices. Observability is not about tools, like DevOps is not a role or tools, right? So what's the first thing an observability team or observability champions should have in mind? People. So focus on people, not the infrastructures. As I said, if you focus on people, you know where you're headed, right? People, and I want them to do this. You get busy with infrastructure, you run to some downtime, you get busy. We once even had a downtime for 3 days, well, not like degraded performance for 3 days, and we were like struggling to get things up and running. But as soon as you finish that, now what? Okay, we've come out of a big issue, let's try to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Okay, and this is going to be a really vicious cycle. So you improve things so that bad things don't happen again. By the time you've improved something, something else breaks. You get into this cycle of details, getting absorbed in the details of what you're doing, getting absorbed in the details of infrastructure, but not people and not practices. So you lose your vision, you lose sense of why you're doing that. So you focus on the tools and you forget the people. Hence, you wouldn't have observability. The more you improve tools, you don't improve observability. Little example, really. One of the biggest issues we have with our tools is scale. So we have, I know we have like 100 million metrics that we ingest, and we have to make them available within a very small ingestion delay. People should be able to visualize whatever they want and alert on anything they want. But scaling an infrastructure that we have, Prometheus and Graphite, none of them actually does stand to the scale correctly. So, but why? We get into the cycle, okay, we need to improve, we need to add more servers, we need to add more resources, we need to improve this loop here, we need to improve code there. But the actual problem, the actual load happening on the system is not on the metrics coming, ingestion, no. It's more on how people are using those things. Are they doing the best practices are they following best practices when they are displaying dashboards, when they're creating like Graphite or Prometheus queries? Once we realize that most of our load is coming just because of user queries, we said, okay, so user queries are actually what's doing us issues. So let's look at what users do in their queries. Let's find the most offending queries. And then, oh my God. Some queries, they have so many stars in them that they can never be, they would be resolved into, I don't know, like 15,000 metrics that they have to be aggregated on the fly like that, real time. That's not possible with those systems, at least with the system that we chose. That can be, and this doesn't really give any significant information. There are other ways of doing the same graph that is important to this team, but it's in simpler terms and more efficient on the infrastructure, and also gives a good overview of the system, rather than like a lot of details in one graph that becomes noise, right? Some teams would have one dashboard that has like 30, 40 graphs in them. Who's looking at that? At best, they'll be looking at the first one, the first row of graphs, and that's usually like 1 or 2. And the rest is hidden. They don't even know it exists. Who would remember 40 graphs on the same page? I mean, just the amount of details there will make you nauseous, right? People will use the systems as they think it should be used. When they started doing things on a small scale at some point, and it worked for them, but as soon as they have more and more and more, then they don't try to adapt their thinking. They just try to use the tool to show more and more and more. Hence, bad usage of tool, loads on the system, you get problems. Because we're running our own tools, so when they do that, they overload. We have some degraded performance, sometimes even downtime. So that's okay, at least okay-ish. But in other cases where you are actually using a SaaS, it might cost more money. Because everything actually boils down to money, right? So in our case, money is not really, you cannot really say, okay, 1 hour of this team, because they're fixing a performance issue, equals that amount of money. So hard to put that as an argument. But if you're using a SaaS and you send too many metrics, that costs money. Some of the providers that I looked at for replacing our system, they would charge you per metric, or a bunch of metrics. Number of hosts multiplied by a certain amount of custom metrics per host, and most of our metrics are actually custom in that sense because they are all business metrics. So if one team starts sending too much, okay, the bill goes up. That can be problematic for smaller companies or even for large companies. So the way people use systems is very, very important to address before addressing the tools themselves. So keep your focus on the people, keep your focus on how they do things, make sure that the best practices that you know about these tools are most important. Eventually, the second part about observability is about people and practice would be practices. So how do you spell practices? Well, you need to know what are those best practices, you need to raise awareness about those, and you need to teach them. Spread your knowledge, advocate. I try to find any words that can be nice, because I don't like evangelize, the one, because it's too religious, maybe. People think it's a bit more extreme. But it's basically about spreading knowledge. Spread this knowledge in your company. As I said earlier, we do presentations, we do workshops. We start with the Prometheus 101, Prometheus 102, considering doing Prometheus 103, where you go into deeper and deeper. So the more they understand what they're using, the more they understand how to use it better. And in all those examples, we show them how to best do it. And of course, we start by ourselves. When we started talking about SLOs, SLIs, SLOs, and SLAs a few years ago, the first thing we did, observability team worked on their SLIs and SLOs, published those, explained them to everyone, and started inviting other teams to come and see and show us what do they think. How can they apply it to them? Team after team after team today, almost all the teams at Criteo have SLIs and SLOs. Are those the best SLIs and SLOs? I doubt. Nothing comes out correctly from the first time, right? It's the first iteration. So we need to do a second iteration. We need to start doing more, adding more precision. When you have a lot of teams depending on each other, I mean, if you're talking microservices, well, at Criteo, we're not really talking microservices, but even if you're talking microservices, one service depends on another, depends on another, depends on another. How can you ensure at the end to your end user whatever reliability you're trying to show? How many nines? 1 9, 2 nines, no nines. Our observability platform inside Criteo doesn't have any nines, just 99. That's fine. Our users are OK with that, and these are all internal users. But we cannot do that for our end user on our website, right? On our platform. You would have to have more. But how can you ensure 2 nines if your infrastructure doesn't give you, even if your platform, if Amazon doesn't give you at least 3 nines, you cannot do 2 nines, right? It's a chain. If your database service internally doesn't give you those, you cannot. So how can you calculate that? So you need everyone to be in this chain to be aware of what they're doing. Start with something so we can improve on it. Always start low and then improve on it. That's how you should do it. You should always start by yourself, show how you can do observability, show them what benefit that brings, and then people will come. They always, the saying always goes like, build it and they will come, right? Not necessarily build it, but do it and show them the example and they will follow. If you just go and preach something and you've not shown them that you yourself doing it, you can't. Everybody say, okay, good idea, but it's just theoretical, even he didn't try it. So always start by yourself. If you're a team, do it like we did. If it's a group of people who are working in parallel to the other, so they don't have a team, they can always find a use case, one team that is interested, work with them, get them in a good state where they can observe better the system and show the example to others and move on. That's the most, this is the second important thing observability champions or team should be doing. And I kept this for the last because it's third in my priority and because it's actually kind of a bit controversial. If I said observability is not tools, but then I told that tools are very important also. Tools are enablers. They are not observability. As I said, it's one piece of the puzzle. You can put whatever tools, and as I said, people will have creative ways of using those tools in ways you have never thought about. And you can also have, there are so many tools, right, to choose from. There's so many SaaS providers. There's so many already tools that you can deploy yourself. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them are meh. And some of them don't even have anything to do with observability. So how can you decide whether this tool fits or doesn't fit? Does it follow the same principles that you have set for your observability vision? Would they enable, so for us, for example, we want observability to be intuitive and effortless. Do those tools help me provide an effortless and intuitive service? Can I easily, for example, integrate it that as soon as you write code, it's observable? Or has at least the bare minimum of what we consider observable code and observable system. There's no observable code, it's only observable systems. So does it mean that your system, can you do that? Then this tool can work. Does this tool help you go through and deeper and deeper and discover things that you didn't expect to see? What is important for you in observability, even if you don't believe what I'm saying? Just figure out what observability is. Find out what you want to be, what that means to you. Find a tool that follows these principles. And then this tool will be good, because this tool will enable you to do things. And if you don't think tools before choosing which one, if you don't think that if they follow the principles or not, then those tools will take people in a different direction. So the only tools that you get are the tools that will really enable people to do the things that you want. And you can, if you take the wrong tools, tools will, regardless of what you try, will impact culture in a different way. Well, people and practices, basically, we're talking about culture, right? And tools do impact culture. You can look at even like tools like Slack or any other chat. They impacted culture a lot. They enabled us to do more things asynchronously, remote. Remote wouldn't be possibility today if we didn't have something like Slack, right? If the only tool for remote was email, that's dead. That's not going to get anywhere, right? Imagine like working at your, even in the same time zone, you send an email, you wait a couple of hours because nobody reads the emails like fast enough. And then an hour, you get the email, you respond. That's not going to work. So tools will help you get there if they follow the same principles, if they actually serve you, right? So let's finish up. So if you remember something out of this at the end, observability is about people and practices. Observability is not tools. Tools are just the enablers. And you don't need a team to do that. You only need people who care. That's it. Thank you.